Welcome back to another episode of the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast, the place where poetry meets conversation. I'm your host, Terrence P. Elmore, and before we get into today's topic, make sure you hit that plus sign so you don't miss an episode. Also, please subscribe to my blog, thebrownssugarcafe.blog, and if you find any value in this episode or any other episodes, make sure you leave a heartfelt review. So with that being said, let's get to it. Welcome back to another episode of the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast. Happy Black History Month, everybody. Black history is every day, but this is a time we set aside to spotlight those Black Americans who've made a difference in our country, in our lives. So please take the time to educate yourself on somebody who you may not have learned. You know, in school, we focus on Martin Luther King Jr. and Harriet Tubman, and they're far more African American people that have made significant contributions to our everyday life. So take the time to check that out. And also make sure that you subscribe to my newsletter. It's terrenceplelmore.substack.com. I would really appreciate that. We've had guests going on all season long. Today we have a special guest. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
So my name is Russell Earle Jr. I'm from Columbia, South Carolina. I'm in IT, been in the IT field for about 10 years as endpoint technician for the Department of Transportation. I'm also Security Plus certified and currently working on my AWS Solutions Architect certification. And that's my day job, but also I love writing. I'm currently preparing to release my first book, Until I Came Home, A Sunset's Journal. I've written music, I've written short film. I enjoy reading. I'm also a brother, a son, a fiance, grandson. As you can tell, a Philadelphia Eagle fan.
Go Birds.
So go Birds, go Birds. So that's who I am in a nutshell.
Congratulations on getting ready to release that new book, man. That's a big deal. I remember
Thank you.
when I began to release my first book and how it felt. Congratulations on the engagement too.
Yeah,
That's
appreciate
that's
it. Thank you.
that's that's a real big deal.
Yeah, that is, man. We just a month and some change in. I proposed on the 25th of December, so on Christmas Day.
Okay.
And we getting things in order, man. So, it's a lot of my buddies are actually married and everything, and they're giving me ideas and just kind of letting me know how this next few months are gonna be, preparing and getting the wedding together. It's gonna fly by and stuff. So but I appreciate that. Thank you so
Oh
much.
man. Yeah,
I
man.
embark on
That's
a
the
new journey here. So
Yeah, man. It's a beautiful thing, man.
yeah. So appreciate that.
You said something in the introduction made me think about something. You're in IT and you're a writer. How do the two coexist?
Yeah, man. So I've always loved IT and just learning about new technologies and everything. And writing has always been a part of my life. I know look at my mom is a big writer. She writes poetry. So she's really gotten me into writing and learning about story. Even when I was little, she used to, read the little Cat in the Hat books and
Oh
just
yeah.
always kind of stayed consistent with like reading and stuff like that. And I don't know, it's just two interests that I've always had. Even back in elementary school, I do remember at one point I was trying to write a book. Then I don't know what I was saying really, but just the whole idea of writing just
Yeah.
always been a part of my life. And like looking back as of recent years, looking back at it, just knowing or realizing how instrumental it was to me and like how it kind of showed up throughout my life, like little breadcrumbs, just trying to figure out a bit more about my identity and self-discovery and stuff. So yeah, and like I said, that's IT is my day job. I know that's kind of two different worlds, but I feel like there's a balance that goes into that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I enjoy the challenge of learning about IT and furthering my knowledge in that. So that's how that kind of came about.
Man, hey, sounds perfectly fine to me.
Yeah.
I have a degree in physics. I'm in systems and procedures, so it's like light IT.
Yeah.
And seems like writer that I talked to so far
Mhm.
have a background in like science or math or some sort of technology.
Yeah,
And I just
yeah.
think it's really cool because growing up, like you said, like just thinking back, and I guess it was after I published my first book, I started thinking, I was like, man, like when I was younger,
Mhm.
English was kind of like my favorite subject. And
Yep.
then I got a little older, I got really into science and math,
Yep,
but
yep.
that writing part of me never left. Like I just kind of always stuck with it until I got a little older and I kind of slacked off with my writing. But like
Uh-huh.
writing was so instrumental to me. I remember, I guess they would call journals. I don't know. They weren't like all
Mhm.
in one book, but just writing out my thoughts and stuff and writing poems and
Yeah,
writing
yeah.
short stories. I remember we used to have those county writing tests, and I used to love that time when them tests could come up because I'm like, I get to write a story and it's
Yeah,
gonna be so
yeah,
cool.
yeah. You know what? It's interesting you said that because, like, thinking back, I guess it was what kind of test was that back in grade school? But anyway, they kind of test you on different subjects. You had your math, your English, and all of that. And I,
Yeah.
I remember I used to love the portion of the test when you had to make the sentence sound better. It
Mhm.
seemed fun to me. If I
Me
don't know if
too.
you remember that, where
Yeah.
it's kind of like what sentence sounds the best or something like that. And
Yeah.
man, I
Yeah.
used to love those.
Me
Like,
too.
and it was so weird. I didn't think about it till later on, but yeah, yeah, I definitely get that. Even with the whole journaling aspect, I keep a journal with me. An actual journal, like it's a small journal I put like in my back pocket, and I carry with me throughout the day.
Wow.
Where I jot down. It can be ideas, thoughts. I either write in it in the beginning of the day or at that evening, just kind of like what I've learned that day, or just things that I want to work on, and just different thoughts. And even on my cell phone, like I jot down. If I don't have that journal with me, I go to my cell phone, write in my notes or whatever, and just trying to stay consistent with that.
So how did you get into journaling? Like, was there a point where you just really got into journaling? And you say you've been doing it for a long time, and what made you
Yeah.
stick with it?
You know what? What when it started was actually, and I'm sure we'll get to it, but when I went on my backpacking experience, which is what my book is about. It's a travel memoir, and I kept a journal with me, and I wrote in it every day, just explaining what happened throughout that day, things I liked, things I didn't like, and it's something that I continued to do after I got back because it felt like the journey was still going on, if that makes
Mm.
sense.
Yeah.
It felt like it was a continuation of, like, even though I'm back home now, this story is still going and I got to keep writing it, you know. And so that's where that tied in. That's where it came. I didn't start. So that's 2015 when I started journaling, and in January 2015. So that's where that started from. So, and I just kind of continued it ever since then.
Man, I seem like I'm always this has to be a sign. I'm always talking to people who journal, and I really need to get back into that. Like I
Mhm.
process my thoughts and things like that, and I
Mhm.
reflect on the day, but I don't write it down. And
Yeah.
talking about, reflecting back to earlier,
Mhm.
earlier when I said that I kind of, for the most part, was still writing poetry and stuff like that, there was like a point where I stopped
Mhm.
for whatever odd reason. I just stopped writing it down, but I would still put the poems together in my head. And
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
I I I get it though, man, because like I feel like as artists, whenever we put out things, we have our like cycles. I guess you can kind of say it's
Mm,
certain seasons where like we really are in that writing mode, and then certain times we're like kind of just downloading information. I feel like Erica Badu said that one time when it came to like creativity, like you in a area, you get into a point sometimes where you're in that downloading process. You might not write as much, but you're absorbing everything around
mm.
you in order to start, writing and having something to say again. But yeah, journaling is important. I'm not sure if you like big into affirmations and things and like writing things out to kind of like as
Yeah,
another
I
form
write
of
things.
speaking it into
Yeah,
existence. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah.
And that's just another form of it, man. And it's something that I try to practice and stay mindful of anytime I put the pen to paper. So so
Yeah, man, you're right, man. Got the right division and make it plain.
Right
Yeah,
division. There you go.
yeah,
That's
man.
it.
I got to do better. I got that journaling app on my phone. I only used it once. It's pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah, yeah.
Um, I got to just do it. I'm gonna do it today, man. I'm gonna try to
There
get
you
into that
go.
rhythm. Cause like when I stopped writing the poetry, and my wife, she was, I think we were just friends at the time, but
Mhm,
like she said something that sparked me getting back into writing them out. And that's how my first book came about because once I started putting pen to paper,
mhm.
I had a desire to create a book. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
man, this would be pretty cool. I don't know if
Mhm,
people would really care, but I
mhm.
think it's cool. I
Yeah,
put it out there and then I got so much reception about it. So many people were saying that how they enjoyed it and stuff. And I was thinking like, man, if I never did that, like
mhm.
all the people that I've reached, who knows when they would have ever gotten that inspiration or what have you. So I was like, man,
Yeah,
it is
yeah.
important to write.
It's important, man, and kinda going off what you were saying, like, I think if I hadn't a journal during that time, I don't know if I would've made a book, because I referred to that journal often, when writing out the book and everything, so, yeah, it's definitely important.
So let's talk about the, I guess you can call it the event or
Yeah,
the
yeah.
the point of your life that brought you to this book. How did you make this decision to
Mhm.
just pack up and go?
So, at one point in 2015, well, let me say 14, I was working for the Department of Corrections at that time, and I enjoyed what I was doing. I was doing more so of computer programming. Not really my strong suit, but I just really didn't at that point in time in my life. I just really wasn't fully into it. I really didn't enjoy what I was doing, and that's no knock to any of the people that were there. I met a lot of great people there, and I still was able to learn something from there. I feel like you can learn something from any job, whether you like it, might not like it as much. You can
Yeah.
always learn something from there and continue to take it with you through life. But anyway, I was in this period, and I ended up reading a article one day about this guy who was a stockbroker, and he ended up pretty much losing everything, losing a lot of money, and decided to give that whole lifestyle up. He was very wealthy, and decided to go backpacking, go traveling, and I reading this information, reading this article, I said, man, this something seems fairly easy, like how it was broken down and everything. And so I started planning. And in my mind, like I didn't know if it was actually going to happen, but I just enjoyed the whole imagination of like going out and setting out on a journey.
Yeah.
The idea was fun to me. And so, even though I wasn't sure if this was going to come into fruition, I said, let me tackle this like it's actually going to happen. So I started mapping out different places that I would like to see, and like, what all do I need? How would I get around? Where would I stay and stuff like that? And I really got detailed with a lot of that stuff. And and before you know it, I think one of the pushes that allowed me to really make that trip was um it just seemed like a lot of material that I was reading at that time. One of my favorite books is The Alchemist by
Okay.
Paulo
Yeah.
Coelho,
Yeah.
and like just that whole journey aspect of leaving everything and going to find the treasure at the pyramids and things like that, and uh, just wanting to find a better sense of my identity, who I was, and getting out of the environment that I've always known. Because we're so easily influenced by things that surround us.
Mm.
That a lot of
Yeah.
times we get lost in, really finding ourselves and our identity and what we gravitate towards and things like that. So it was just a variety of things that kind of came together that kind of gave me that push to, man, let's do this. Let's make this happen. So
Man, you said it, man. It's like
yeah,
we're influenced by our environments, and some people are so close-minded because they never expand their environment. They
yeah,
talk to a certain group of people, and that's all they talk to. They hang around a certain group of people, even
yeah,
have casual conversations just with a certain group of people, and it
yeah,
leads them
yeah,
so close-minded to where they feel like that's the only reality.
Mhm.
And there's
Mhm.
so many different other things out there. I mean, even in our own cities, some people don't go as far as exploring different parts of the city, talking to different people. What it does is it makes us, I guess, selfish is the word I would
Mhm.
want to use. It makes
Mhm.
us selfish because it's like my reality and the people in my circle's reality is the only reality and nothing else is
Mm.
true.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's true, man. I think getting out and seeing different places, it gives yourself an opportunity to grow and develop and expand your mind, and it's so much out there, man. As of late, my fiance, she loves to travel. We've been to different places and things like that. I don't have that bug how I did before at one time of,
Yeah,
that 6 months. I traveled for 6 months for my backpacking experience. But yeah, I think that's important, man. I think it's important to get out and learn new things, and uh, to kind of give you new thoughts, new ideas, and you really get an appreciation for people and how they live, and I think it helps you mature and just, like you said, not be so closed minded.
yeah.
It's important to kind of see other things.
So, where did you go when you made this decision, and how did the people in your life take it when you told them that you were getting a one-way ticket
Right,
to
right. South
backpack?
America. Yeah, yeah. So I went to South America, and I actually got a chance to go to several countries. I went to Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina.
Wow, okay.
And yeah, so and when I told my when I told my family or my loved ones, you can imagine, it was kind of like the side eye, like what's going on, especially my
Yeah.
grandparents.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I love my grandparents, they're very important to me and played a very instrumental role in my life. But they just come from a different generation
Yeah.
where, doing something like that, and keep in mind I'm already working my state job. So with the good
With the
benefits and
good
everything,
benefits,
oh man,
you don't
come
let
on now.
that go.
You don't let that go. So like breaking the news to them, I think breaking the news to them, that was quite the conversation. And I did, put it in the book, just that. And I think that's like one of the best like dialogues in my book. Cause that was challenging too. Like trying to remember conversations and things like that. But that point in my book, I think that was the best time. Like I felt like the dialogue was just on point because I just got them so much of things they were saying stuff. But yeah, it was they definitely had their opinions and made and expressed them for sure. But like I said, but I understand, I get it. Being the only grandson, going out here and not knowing, leaving my job, buying a one-way ticket, not knowing nobody, not really familiar with the language, and just
Oh, yeah.
going here by yourself. And my granddad got this thing. He had a experience one time. He went to I think, where were they, in Arkansas, and him and my grandmother, this was years ago, and they got on a plane, and I think it sounded like they were like on one of those it didn't sound like a full, like airline. It was like one of those crop dusters or
Oh,
one of
okay,
those
yeah,
things.
yeah,
And now that compared to like a Delta, or like, that's two totally different experiences. I
yeah.
mean, you feel everything in one of
And
those
on the little
little planes. And so I think that always stuck with him. And he got this thing that he say now. He's like, he says, son, if I can't drive there, I don't need to be there. So he's like, and he lived by that. He said, I said right then and there in that air, he said, the good Lord put me back on the ground. He ain't never got to worry about me getting
I
up.
know that's right.
For real. So, but then that's just one of those things, So it was scary for them to know that I was getting ready to do something like that and embark on that. But of course, hindsight now is 2020. It's like, wow, that, I've actually done that. And sometimes, I get asked about like, wow, I can't believe you really did something like that. And really, you don't hear too much of that, really, especially in our community, here in the
No,
South.
yeah.
embarking. That's why I feel like the story is so interesting, an interesting take, to read that perspective and everything. So, but yeah, it was that reception of everything was kind of wasn't so didn't start out as well as I
Yeah.
hoped.
Boy, I can imagine, man. Anytime,
Ah,
with that generation, anytime you talk about something that's other than a solid job,
yeah,
it's like, "What? You doing what?"
yeah.
It's man, so what
Yeah.
made you pick South America?
Um, I picked South America literally because it was the closest continent compared to other places, and it was one of, as far as when it came to expenses too. I think the
Okay,
next
yeah.
cheapest place would have been, I know, between Central America and South America, at least for that time anyway. I'm sure it's still similar the same, but it was a lot more affordable. And Southeast Asia is also one of the, I think, is the most affordable out of those three content areas or whatever. So I chose South America, and plus, if my granddaddy had to come get me, he could just drive
Drive
down.
on.
It's connected.
There you have it.
It's connected. You know what I'm saying? But yeah. So that's why I chose, and a lot of the places that I wanted to visit, going back to that the job that I was at, oftentimes I would look at, I mean, I would browse the internet and like look at these places, and I noticed that a good majority of them were located in South America. So like Machu Picchu and Angel Falls in Venezuela, and the Salt Flats in Bolivia. It's just certain places, like, man, just didn't seem like worldly, like just from different, you know what I'm saying, just
Yeah,
different.
yeah.
So yeah, so that seeing all of that, definitely made me come to my decision of going to South America.
So when you first get there, what was that experience like?
Mm. So a part of my research, one of the things that I did was reach out to the couch surfing community. And what the couch surfing community is, it's an online community where you meet other people from across the world who are located in a place that you want to visit, and you connect, and the whole idea is they will give you housing in exchange for just um, uh, like shared story and experience, and it's kind of like
Oh
a
wow, yeah.
community,
Yeah.
like with no free of charge, nothing. It's just you reach out. All you really needed was a email account, and you can just start reaching out to people, and they can say
Wow.
yay or nay.
Yeah.
Of course, you gotta verify who you are and things like that, but it's different now. I mean, that was during the Wild Wild West days. The last time I checked, as of late, they made it a bit more secure, where you have to sign up or subscribe to like a monthly fee, I guess, to make it more safer, and which I
Yeah.
understand,
Yeah.
because
Yeah, it's
you can
different.
see how that can kind of go left.
Yeah.
But but anyway, so I reached out to a few people, and I had a couple names that gave me the okay, that it was okay to stay with them, and also that would have, also staying with them gives you a different experience. Like, you get an opportunity to learn how it feels to live as a local there. You're not going to some hotel,
Yeah.
like you're in the community, like, with working people. They go, so that's a whole different vibe, as you can imagine too. But anyway, I reached out to these people. They gave me the okay, and my first city that I ended up visiting was a city called Caracas, Venezuela. And I have to admit, I was a bit naive on my part, because I just didn't realize how uh, um economically, um, how much things were bad there economically, and just the strain that they had with the government and its people and stuff like that. I could have did a lot of better research, going there. And it's probably one of the most dangerous cities in
Mm.
Venezuela, if not like South America. Like, it's that bad. And so, but I felt like not knowing also kind of helped me too, in a strange way. Sometimes when you like ignorant to something, you don't bring that energy, or certain energies and stuff doesn't gravitate towards your way. Like, if you have the
Yeah.
knowing or the knowledge or something, it's funny how that works, but,
Yeah, yeah,
I think that kinda helped to my advantage, to be honest. But, anyway, I went there to this place, and my first experience, I'm here at the airport, and doing my research, they have this thing called the black market where you can exchange money, have it how they have different currencies, like, for the exchange for the dollar.
yeah, yeah,
And so they have their own system where you can get more money if you exchange with, like, the people themselves. And I was told that you don't want to exchange with the officials at the airport because they'll rip you off of your money and things like that. So anyway, I found myself in this situation, face to face with one of the officials, and I didn't want to exchange money, and I ended up finding myself in a bathroom with like seven of them, like the military. They had like the military get up and all. They took my passport, my bag, they counted my money, all of that. And that was the one moment in my life, or during my trip, where I should have listened to my granddad. I was like, why did I why did I come here?
Soon as you get there,
Soon as
man.
I get there, and this is my first experience, getting off the plane. I'm trying to connect the Wi-Fi. At the time, I didn't realize that they had cut off the Wi-Fi for the country. And that's like, as a backpacker, that's your lifeline, like connecting
Yeah,
to be able to communicate. I didn't realize that at the time. And I ended up having to spend the night I mean, like, it was my first experience, man. Like, I'm running into this. And so that was my first introduction to, like, going to a new place, but it just felt like that's how a story goes often. Like, you read certain stories, and it's like that initial thing is so, like, rough, and like trying to get through this, whatever this is.
yeah.
And then before you get a chance to see, the beauty of everything. And that was my introduction to it, man.
Man, what made you stay after that?
Um, I think because just the preparation, and, like, I made it this far. Here I am.
Yeah,
And one of the things that really made me have a positive outlook was, after they gave my stuff back to me, I walked out of the bathroom, and I ended up seeing uh, this young girl who also had a backpack like mine. And I was thinking, like, man, maybe that's a backpacker too. And I went up to her, and I said, "Tu hablas English," which is, "Do you speak English?" And she said, "Yes, I speak English." And man, when I tell you, I started talking to her like I knew her, like she was family, like I knew
right.
her this whole time. I told her everything. I mean, so what ended up happening? So she was from New Zealand. Her name was Nanaiko, and she was stopping in Caracas as a transit spot. She was going
Okay.
to Bogota, Colombia, and, like, you know, meeting her just felt like a sign in itself. Like, man, like, because you know people that are aware, and like backpackers just know, like, this is a place that you probably shouldn't might not be the best place to visit.
Mm,
And like, to actually meet somebody here at this particular moment in time, it's already nighttime, it's late, they started closing the food court down. I mean, it's just, the chances of that happening is just, man, like,
yeah,
I know I'm being looked after, you know what I'm saying,
yeah,
like.
yeah. For real.
So I I made this kind of like connection. My point of going to Venezuela was to go see Angel Falls. And I made this kind of, like, I said it in my book, where I met this angel, in the Nico. And two others too that I eventually ended up meeting, because my host of the couch surfing community ended up backing out on me, and like, I'm stuck, and like,
Yeah.
I mean, like, everything was falling, like, I'm telling you, man, like, it was scripted. Like I was being looked after for real. Like, so that's why I kind of kept going. It was just different signs that let me know that I was gonna be okay.
So, of the different countries that you visited, did you have one in particular that was maybe your favorite, or did you have one that you might have went back to more than once?
I would love to go back to Colombia. It's this city called Bogota. I think it's the capital of Colombia, I believe. But outside of the weather, because it can kind of be off and on, like, the people there is just so, I mean, that's so helpful, man. I mean, like, um, and also too, it's a artsy
Oh
city as
yeah.
well too. They heavy in graffiti. Like if you, I know as with like with here, graffiti is kind of considered like illegal, and you don't
Yeah.
do it. But there, I mean, it's graffiti everywhere. Beautiful artwork. And a lot of business owners actually hire artists to come to put murals and different things on their
Yeah.
shop because it attracts people, it attracts customers. So they use that to kind of like bring people in to their business. And yeah, I would definitely visit Colombia again. It's a country that I wouldn't mind. Other cities. Every city that I visit that I went to there was just a beautiful place, whether it's like landscape, like I said, people, the food was good. I
I
mean
can
everything,
imagine.
man. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The coffee, that's actually where I started drinking coffee, believe it or not.
Oh, you was getting real
I
coffee.
was I was getting but you know what? The interesting thing about that is because I was thinking the same thing. I'm going to the source. Like this is it.
Yeah.
The coffee gonna be good. But I actually came to find out that the coffee here is better only because a lot of the good product from Colombia is exported to the States. So all of the good stuff, like we pretty much get. And
Wow.
it was good to have, coffee in the country Colombia.
Yeah.
But you know, oftentimes a lot of the what's really good coffee, it gets exported to the States.
You know
So
what? I
yeah.
can believe that because I was watching something on the news and they were talking about chocolate, like the cocoa beans and stuff, and the people that
Mm,
harvested
mhm.
never actually tasted coffee. I mean, not
Oh,
coffee, never
wow.
actually tasted chocolate.
Cooked chocolate before.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they let the people taste it and it
Mhm.
was just like, wow, it's like crazy how they were just doing this for like however long, but never actually tasted
Yeah.
what chocolate tasted like.
Dang,
Yeah.
that's wild, that's
Yeah.
wild.
And I also learned that coffee is actually like an African product. And it's a whole story
Really?
behind that. Yeah, yeah.
Really? Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
it's a guy I follow on Instagram, Bartholomew, and
Yeah.
he's on this mission to teach about it. I'll send you his information, but
Okay, yeah,
that
do
was
that.
very fascinating to learn. But yeah, I could see all the good stuff being exported.
Export it. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because it's
yeah.
a brand. A friend of mine, she's from South America. I can't
Okay,
remember what country, but it's a brand. It's in this yellow container, begins with the C, and she put me on to that coffee, and I was like,
okay.
and I'm not much of a coffee drinker. I prefer tea, but when
Yeah.
I do drink coffee, I wanted to have some flavor to it.
Yeah, yeah, I got you. Yeah, I got you, yeah. I get that.
So you were 6 months, man. That's a long time. It's a
That's a
short
long
time,
time.
but when you think about it, that's a long time. Did
Yeah.
you decide before you left that you were going to stay 6 months, or maybe it was shorter, longer? Like, how did you end up just staying 6 months? I say just like it's.
Hey, you know what? 6 months compared that same girl I was just talking about, Naniko, she had already been gone for a year,
Hmm.
and she was getting ready to head back home just for a break to go back and travel. Man, I've met people that had been traveling for 2 years, like, and it's like, man. But anyway, I didn't have any plan of going for exactly 6 months. It just so happened around that 6 month time, like it just felt right. And going back, I felt like I saw everything that I wanted to see. I felt like I got everything, that I felt like I was searching for. um and it just felt like a right time. And plus, two, money was getting low, so I had
Oh,
to I had to make a decision. But it felt right coming back,
yeah,
at that, I'll say 6 months. I don't think I would do anything like that again, like that long again, if I do decide to travel, for an extended period of time. Because during that time, man, I ended up losing four loved ones, and that was a
oh,
fear of mine. That was a fear of
yeah,
mine, like being like missing out on things happening back home.
yeah,
And I ended up losing two family members and two friends of the family, like two neighbors that kind of been that I knew, growing up. like through life, and but and that happened. So that's, if there was like any regret as far as leaving, that would be like kind of the one thing, like
Yeah.
and not being there for my family while this going on, during those tough times. And it was definitely a struggle, man. Like, I know that the idea of traveling and seeing the world sounds beautiful, but you experience lows too, and there's certain things you don't think about, like what are you giving up to when you
Mm.
do things like that. And that was one of those things, man. Like that was definitely a it was hurtful times,
Yeah. Yeah.
at certain points. So
Man, I'm glad you said that because
yeah,
that's something that I've never thought about, and I'm sure my listeners never thought about. Like,
yeah,
traveling is all this beautiful, you tasting all this wonderful food, and
yeah,
but
yeah,
like, what are you missing? Especially if you have like family and friends back home, it's like, what are
yeah,
you missing back home? Because
yeah,
it's not like if something happens, you can just like your granddad hop in the car
yeah, yeah.
and go and then come back.
And come back. Yeah, yeah, that's true, man. A good buddy of mine, shout out to my buddy Ty, is along the trip, along my trip, I've met few people that really like stood out to me, and that I really created a close bond with. Um and it's so funny because, like, in South America, it's almost like this route that a lot of backpackers take. So as crazy as it sounds, you run
Wow.
into a lot of the same people
Yeah.
from, and it's so funny because, like, here in the city, like, you might not see, man, I ain't see you in years, I ain't see you since
Yeah.
high school, but you mean I meet somebody in Colombia and see them again in Chile. Like, it's wild, like, that
Yeah.
happened. But he was one, and they had a similar incident that happened, man. Like, it was like a tragic one. And they ended up having to cut their trip short, like, to go back for that.
Yeah.
And it's yeah, it's a real thing that can happen. And you just have, I didn't think about it until then. But like I said, it was just one of those things where it's like, man, like, that's a possibility. It's a possibility. Like, certain unfortunate things can happen and you not be there for it.
Yeah. Man. So you're journaling during
Mhm.
your trip. Was that the time you decided to write this memoir, or did that thought come when you came back home?
The thought came when I came back home. So I got back home July of 2015, and I think I had a conversation with my grandmother, and she had mentioned about maybe you should, write a book of your travel, like. And I knew deep down I had a story that I could tell.
Yeah.
But when she kind of said it, I was like, man, let me go ahead and start this thing. So I actually started in November 2015. And it all together, man, it took me like close to like 10 years to put this thing together. And I don't know, a lot of times I feel like, now I admit some of it was procrastination. I probably could have
Yeah,
cut
we
down a
all do
little
it,
bit.
man. I'm procrastinating now, so
But yeah, but I feel like that time gave me an opportunity to also become a better writer.
Mm,
I feel like that time, because during that process, I took a creative writing course at Midlands Tech.
okay.
And that's certain knowledge that I didn't have at one point. Now that I got it, I can go back and kind of work on it some more, and so I'm a lot more mindful and easy on myself when I think about how much time went by before the actual book came out.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it definitely, it was a thought that I was thinking, like, as I was writing. But when my grandmother said it, I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and sit down and do this. And I actually started writing this on paper. Like, I wasn't typing this up initially. Like, I was actually writing, and like
Yeah.
that process, like, I feel like even though it's my story, the fact that I was writing it, it felt like more love was going into it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Come on,
Uh,
dog.
and
I it's something
if that
about
makes
when you man, I got a pen right here. It's something about when you write stuff down. I got a pen, got a
right.
notebook, it's something
Yeah,
about
yeah.
just when
There's
you
something
take
about
that
it.
pen in the hand or pencil to hand and write on paper, man,
Yeah, yeah.
it's something to, what I learned? We went to a Spike Lee did a lecture in Charleston we went to,
Oh
and
wow,
he
okay.
said he writes his scripts on paper, all of them. He
Dang,
gets
man.
somebody else to do the typing, of
The
course, or
typing
whatever,
for it.
but he writes them out. When I learned that, I
Mm,
was like, wow.
yeah,
Like he
yeah,
had like when you have a process, sometimes you just gotta stick with it no matter what
yeah,
type of technology comes and
yeah,
find somebody who can add the technology to it. But if you got a process, man,
yeah.
hey,
Yeah, yeah, that's it, man. It's therapeutic, man. A lot of times, like with the typing and stuff, or like how we were saying with the journaling, like maybe typing in your phone or just whatnot. Sometimes it feels like it's a disconnection there sometimes. So,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, it feels like a disconnection. Like if I were to type something out, opposed to just writing with pen to
yeah,
paper. It's like you say, it's a process. Like
yeah.
it's a skill that you're doing. So yeah, yeah. So I get that.
Maybe that's what I need to do, man. Man, I'm really
Yeah,
enjoying this conversation, man, because
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah. It's
that's what I
good.
need
It's
to
good
do. I need
stuff.
to take one of these hundreds of notebooks that I have that are
Yeah.
empty and write
Yeah, yeah,
it.
yeah, definitely, man. Definitely, definitely.
What would somebody gain from reading this memoir?
Well, for one, I feel like you would gain perspective, as I was saying earlier, like just this story coming from somebody that looks like them.
Yeah.
You can gain, but to be honest, man, I feel like it's a person can read the book and get something from it, and then somebody else can read and get a totally different things because I have in my journey, like learning about
Yeah.
myself and whatever is important for you at that time that you're reading it, that's the thing you're gonna pull from it. I feel like I know one of the biggest lessons that I learned for me is I was on a bus ride in Argentina and I went from this place called El Calafate, Argentina to Buenos Aires, Argentina, which is the capital. And Terrence, that was a 42-hour bus ride, bro. 42. I know some people don't like car rides from here to Atlanta. 3 hours. It's a 42-hour bus ride. And so in South America, they have like the double decker buses,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, I seen those.
And I just so happened to get the seat that's at the top where the driver would be at the bottom. So you can imagine like everything in front of me is just glass window. Like I just
Yeah,
see everything. Like the best seat probably
yeah,
in on the bus, right? And man, you can imagine like I did everything that I could, in that time. I wrote, I slept, I ate, I listened to music, I, finished on a song I was writing. I had a conversation, my first like real conversation in Spanish. And, during that bus ride, I learned probably one of the most important things probably from my whole book. And I don't mind sharing that because like I said, the journey itself is like the experience. But I learned that at that point I no longer cared where I was going to next. Like I had fell in love with the act of just going. I fell in
mm,
love with the trip of just going there.
yeah,
And I feel like a lot of times like we set um certain goals for ourselves and sometimes we're fortunate enough to obtain those things, but it's not when you get those things that you realize that what you valued the entire time was the process of just going. I didn't care which city I was going to next. I fell in love with like just the act of moving forward, like
yeah,
just, man, here I am, like, and that was about 3/4 away into my trip when I kind of like learned that about myself. And I feel like that's something that you can, carry with in life. Like it can apply. I know you've heard the saying, the journey is the destination.
yeah,
I can't
yeah,
remember. Yeah, and
yeah,
that's when that connected to me. I hadn't heard that saying during that part of my life, but when I heard it, I was like, that holds true, So I mean, I just feel like you learn so much from it, and you can get different things from reading the book. Uh, So yeah, that's it's worth getting. It's worth
yeah.
reading.
Right. Before I let you get out of here, let the people know when your book is dropping, how they can purchase your book, any information you need to share, how they can
Right.
support you, get in contact with you.
Okay, yeah. So you can go to my website, russellearljr.com. and Earle is spelled Earle. I'm also on social media too. At one point in time, as I mentioned before, I did some writing, so I still have my artist name as Rizzimet, Rizzimet. So I'm on social media, whether it be TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, what have you. But you can check out my website. My book is dropping April 15th. It's called Until I Came Home, a Sunset's Journal. And I'm also in the works of getting a book release event as well too around that time. So
Okay.
stay on the lookout for that. If you follow my socials, you'll get further detail. And also to subscribe to my emailing list as well to stay up to date when everything that's happening. I certainly do appreciate it again, man. Giving me a chance to get on your platform and promote my book and everything. I really enjoyed the conversation, and this is my first time entering into like the author space, and my first time really doing a podcast. And whenever you get these opportunities, man, starting out as I'm very grateful. You giving me a space and to be vocal. I've heard a few of your episodes already. I'm familiar with Preach Jacobs,
Oh
my
yeah,
man
yeah.
from the Call Me Mr. program, and everything, and the great things that they're doing and continue to do, and man, just to be amongst these guests here, man, I really do appreciate you giving me this opportunity here.
Oh yeah, man. I thank you for reaching out. We didn't get to connect at the Soda City Poetry Festival, but you
Hmm.
reached out.
Yeah,
Everything was happening so fast that day. It was
yeah,
a dope experience though, but
yeah, for real, man.
yeah, but thank you for for hitting me up, man, and
For sure, for
telling me
sure.
about your book. I was like, man, this is really good. I congratulations on everything that you're doing. Much
Thank you,
success in
thank you.
your book. I'll definitely be purchasing and supporting.
Appreciate that. Thank you, man.
So once again, I appreciate you, and everybody go check out Russell's website, subscribe to the newsletter, connect with him on social media, and remember, as always, keep pushing forward. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Terrence P. Elmore, and this is the place where poetry meets conversation. Hit that follow button and turn on your notifications so you won't miss an episode. Check out my blog, thebrownsugarcafe.blog. Also connect with me on Instagram at thebrownsugarcafe. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and as always, remember, keep pushing forward.